Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, formerly known best for being the one who talked about Jewish space lasers, has been active in the news lately, and not for the reason you might think. Taylor Greene has spent her political career being very outspoken, never missing out on a chance to say something completely nonsensical that's towing the MAGA party line. But while she certainly remains outspoken, lately she's been outspoken against Donald Trump and the MAGA party line. It seemed like Marjorie Taylor Greene actually gained some common sense for once. But barring that, there had to be some sort of explanation. And we may have found it. There's a prevailing theory that Marjorie Taylor Greene is mad at Donald Trump because he has gotten in the way of her plans to run for Senate. Fuel for this theory came from longtime Marjorie Taylor Greene antagonist and fellow representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said in a recent social media post, quote, "The White House and Trump land shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal ambitions to run for Senate, and she's been on a revenge tour ever since. While I myself was not aware of her senatorial ambitions, I suppose it does make a bit of sense that her ire with the current Republican administration is something personal and not out of any sense of integrity or realization at the evils that they do and that she would support as a part of their party. I was fully prepared to believe that her pushback against her Republican colleagues stemmed from their refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, and that resulting in her having to pay more out of pocket for her adult son's health care. A suggestion some made online, maybe a bit tongue-in-cheek, but nonetheless somewhat possible at least. Anything seemed more possible than her actually having grown a conscience. Marjorie Taylor Greene announced last May that she would not seek her party's nomination for Georgia's Senate next year, and insisted that Donald Trump had not pressured her to stay out of the race. But many feel that, as typical Republican, just because she says something doesn't mean she means it. And it seemed a little bit too coincidental that she started to push back against Republicans, and specifically Donald Trump and MAGA, right around that same time. A former strong Trump loyalist, it seemed odd that Marjorie Taylor Greene was then pushing back against the hand that fed her, as it were. But some are saying that her way out claims, such as that 9/11 was an inside job or that Sandy Hook was faked by crisis actors, had led her to do very poorly in polls against the Democratic incumbent, Senator John Ossoff. So maybe the Republican powers that be just felt she wouldn't be a good fit, and if she were to become their candidate, she would surely lose. So her claim that she was willingly choosing not to pursue that senatorial candidacy was kind of more like a, well, you can't fire me because I quit. They didn't want her, but so she's saying, well, I didn't want it anyway. So it could very well be that feeling slighted by her party, Marjorie Taylor Greene felt that she could get her quote-unquote revenge on them by speaking out against them. While most of the Republican upper echelon has chosen to take their orders from their leader Trump, who told them that the Epstein files were a nothing and to stop talking about them, Marjorie Taylor Greene has refused to stop, which, considering just how many years those on the right were using these files as a political battering ram and hyping up Jeffrey Epstein as like the worst man ever and at the heart of the evil deep state, to suddenly reverse course and pretend like it was never a whole big deal after all when things started to get a little bit too hot, a little bit too close to their great leader Donald Trump, actually seemed a little more suspicious. Taylor Greene also broke with her party line by being an outspoken critic of Israel, something few on either side of the political aisle have been willing to do. She voted to cut aid to Israel, which included being against missile defense, and voted to protect the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which were facing a ban backed by her fellow Republicans. She went as far as to be vocally in support of right-wing influencers such as Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who have voiced themselves seemingly anti-Semitic views which are not in line with the mainstream Republican position. But I suppose as the former Jewish space laser lady, flirting with anti-Semitic ideas and supporting anti-Israel positions is not exactly shocking or even all that surprising. In a time where the government shutdown is largely centered around healthcare and the Democrats not wanting the Affordable Care Act subsidies to expire, and her fellow Republicans in Congress being steadfast in refusing to bend to Democrats' demands. Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to take a position that is more aligned to the Democrats than those of her Republican colleagues. She said on social media, quote, "I am absolutely disgusted that health insurance premiums will double if the tax credits expire this year." And if she'd just stopped there, she would have been perfectly golden. But followed up with, "Also, I think health insurance and all insurance is a scam, just to be clear." So even that seeming moment of lucidity didn't last very long, despite claims by the president and the administration that they have ended inflation and revived prosperity in the United States. Marjorie Taylor Greene has not shied away from saying that no, in fact, they have done neither of those things. She had been quoted as saying, quote, "Prices have not yet come down at all. The job market is still extremely difficult. Wages have not gone up. Health insurance premiums are going to go up. Car insurance goes up every year." And all that is absolutely true. But most Republicans, especially those in Congress, refuse to speak out against the claims by the administration that everything is fine and everything is good and Donald Trump has been the best thing for America they've ever seen. And it's in that fact, in that willingness to not blindly fall in line with the party and simply back Trump in everything he does and says, that we find why she's really willing to do this. She may be positioning herself for a post-Trump Republican Party, as his approval ratings seem to be in a constant freefall, and even the least educated of the Republican base is starting to lose faith in him and his promises. It's actually not too hard to see the value in positioning yourself as someone who was not fooled by him and who was willing to call him out, so that when the Republican masses finally do turn on him and his empire has fallen, she can use that as political capital for her own political aspirations. So when you really get down to it, it was personal ambition all along. Assuming this really is the solution as to why she's decided to be an anti-Trump Republican when no one else seems to dare to be, save maybe Liz Cheney, daughter of the now very deceased war criminal and former Vice President Dick Cheney. She's capitalized on her outsider status even within the Republican establishment to grant herself a level of freedom and outspokenness not available to almost anyone else within her party. And what previously seemed to be complete madness may have been actually shrewd political machinations. She can see the writing on the wall and the ending of the Trump era of the Republican Party, and she wants to be there to pick through the ashes and be on the top of the heap when it all goes downhill. Maybe she even wants to build her own cult of personality to become a new Trump in a post-Trump Republican Party. And maybe it really is just as simple as she really wants that Senate seat and feels like the only way to get it is to do so when Trump and his cronies are no longer a factor. While she's by no means on their side and still awful, I think at least in some way those on the left see her as almost an enemy of my enemy is my friend. So while she's not tolerating the same sorts of things they're not tolerating, they're sort of a little bit on the same side. But I have no doubt that while we may not know the exact reasonings why she's decided to break with the Republican Party line and backing without question the great and powerful Donald Trump, like every Republican, nothing she does is not for personal gain. Everything is, what do I get out of it? How does it benefit me personally? So the real question isn't why is she doing this, but what is she getting out of it? What does she have to gain? Maybe it's a future Senate seat. Maybe it's just positioning herself as a prominent and outspoken voice in a Republican Party that no longer is at the beck and call of the orange man. I really couldn't say. But what I can say is that as long as she remains a thorn in Donald Trump's side and at least a semi-ally to the Democrats and the left, I guess I'm okay. I still detest her as a person. I think she has said awful things and should not get a pass for them. But like I said before, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and while I'll never really call her a friend, as long as we're working towards some of the same things, I guess he's an acquaintance. Anything to hasten the end of Donald Trump's empire and making him just a footnote in history again. But I'd also be lying if I didn't really look forward to never having to hear from her or about her ever again. I hope Democrats can do really great in these upcoming midterm elections and oust as many Republicans as possible from government. Maybe even including Marjorie Taylor Greene. Who knows? But one can only hope. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time, when I cut you off another slice of news.